What is up, guys, and welcome back to yet another gaming first look where we showcase some straight up gameplay and give first impressions. Today we are talking about Doom: The Dark Ages, and if somehow you don't know what Doom is or you've been living under a rock, this is probably one of the biggest household names when it comes to first person shooters. There's just been dozens of Doom games in the past, all of them successful in their own right and on every console known to man, and even quite a few on cell phones, so I think it's safe to say that Doom has been around the block more than a few times. Now, this new title will be the third entry into the rebooted franchise since Doom 2016, and it's really impressive that the people at id Software have found a way to keep Doom fundamentally the same at its core while making tiny changes on how the Doomslayer fights to keep each game its own special flavor of demon slaying, and they do it with no insane learning curve and a moderate return to form on how Doom operated in its OG days. But if you aren't among the few who never knew of Doom, then much like myself, you've probably been keeping a close eye on this title since its reveal at Summer Games Fest back in June of 2024. And recently, I was able to get about 5 hours of hands-on time with the game, courtesy of id Software, Bethesda, and Xbox. I got some insights on it, and I'm going to be sharing those with you today. And without further ado, let's begin. Please subscribe. Now, one of the most important parts of the game that I think all Doom fans will agree on is how it feels running around the map, switching weapons, and engaging in combat, the three big pillars, if you will. And what should be taken into account is that the people at id shared that their goal was to shift the playstyle of the Doomslayer from the acrobatic fighter jet Doomslayer into a tank that stands and fights, and I gotta say, I think they nailed it. This then ties perfectly into what I was saying a few moments ago, that the gameplay was a return to form from the OG Doom, where strafing and dodging was the main way of evading damage, which for Doom: The Dark Ages is a factor on top of the stand and fight creed, because there were times where I would instinctively want to reposition, break line of sight, and re-engage, which in Doom Eternal would have worked great, but not so much in Doom: The Dark Ages. This game really pushes you to stay in the pocket with enemies, either by blocking with your new shield, incapacitating them by throwing it, parrying, or utilizing strafing to evade damage. I can't stress it enough, guys, going toe-to-toe with enemies is the move with Dark Ages, but even with this shift in combat, this still feels very familiar. Switching weapons still operates the same. Weapons have different firing modes. Melee combos have been implemented, doing massive damage. And you also have different melee options, two of which we were able to try out, both feeling equally satisfying to utilize. However, I will say that I'm not thrilled with the redesign of the glory kill system, at least as I experienced it, because as many of you might remember, most enemies in Doom Eternal had 1 to 3, sometimes even 4 different glory kill animations, each triggering depending on where you initiated the short animation, that being from above, in front, behind, or on the left or right side of the enemy. But in Doom: The Dark Ages, most of the glory kills, at least what I experienced, were either a boot to the face or a quick punch, which definitely left the spoiled kid in me that I got from playing Doom Eternal wanting more. That could be due to them wanting to speed up gameplay a bit, as mentioned by one of my friends who also attended the event, but for me personally, it feels like a missed feature. Now, most of the gameplay you're seeing here is from a segment called Siege, which is one of the first looks into the semi-open world where you can find secrets, complete optional side objectives like the one that has us destroying enemy mortar launchers, and participating in a new event called Morale Encounters, each of which will feature a demon leader that is invulnerable to damage until demon morale is depleted, which is represented by a purple bar under the leader's health. These areas are densely packed with an assortment of different demons and can be tough, but will reward you with stat upgrades, this one in particular increasing our spike ammunition. Similar to previous Doom titles, there are things that you can collect around the map that are used to upgrade abilities and stats for the Slayer. Nothing really out of the ordinary when it comes to that. Weapons have abilities that you can upgrade to. They have secondary functions that are fun to play with. And aside from the super shotgun and the plasma rifle, we got to try a few of the new weapons. And the pulverizer was one of the first ones I got my hands on, which is a weapon that uses crushed skulls as its ammunition that I find to have so much personality. And this weapon is best suited for crowd control, but also in conjunction with a new feature that calls for the player to overheat enemy armor. And after reaching a a bright red hue can be ripped off of enemies, staggering them and leaving them in a much more vulnerable state. We also got to try out the Reaver chain shot, my personal favorite, and contrastly to the pulverizer, this one's designed to be a one-punch kind of hit, dealing massive damage, and overall design is awesome. I didn't get to use any side abilities with it, but I think the ceiling for entertainment with this weapon in particular is pretty high. Now, something that everyone needs to be prepared for is that this game is incredibly parry heavy, and it's indicated with green in all cases. If it glows green, you could parry it. There was a bit of awkwardness at one point. There were these like tank-like enemies around the map that could be instantly destroyed by deflecting its projectile back at it, and it shoots kind of slow. So sometimes you'd just be standing there and waiting for it to shoot again. And in a Doom game, standing around isn't really true to its nature. Not an egregious sin, but I did notice it. The parrying did feel good though. I played on normal difficulty just to get a real feel for the game, and I found that parry windows were overly generous at times. There would be moments where I would parry shamefully late and the game would still give it to me, but that is to be expected on a lower difficulty because as you climb in difficulty settings, those parry windows will shrink in size. Now, there were 3 other sections of our 5-hour span that we got to test out, one portion being piloting an Atlan mech, which has everybody hyped up, and rightfully so. It was definitely cool. The scene looked awesome. Part of it was really melee oriented. Then we eventually got a dual chain gun, and it was a spectacle, but at the same time, it also kind of felt like we were just a giant, slower Doomslayer. Personally, I thought it was cool. You still needed to perfect dodge, which left the enemy vulnerable for big hits. And according to the team, this isn't going to be a one and done style of mission. There will be multiple sections of the game where you're piloting a mech, so that's good to hear. That means they'll probably be more fleshed out than what I got to experience, and hopefully you get more than one weapon. We also got to fly in one of the Doom Dragon sections of the game, and this split the room a little bit as far as who liked it and didn't prefer it. Personally, I enjoyed it, but there was something about it that came off a little stiff, I think could be the word. Now, during this section, we needed to shoot down these carrier aircraft, and in order to accomplish this, we first needed to drop the carrier shields, board and destroy the ship's core, and take them out of the sky. And much like the other parts of the game, there will be green projectiles here again, which can be perfectly evaded, and after doing so, you begin to shoot higher caliber weapons, dealing significantly more damage. The pros about this section, though, are simply this. If you want your gameplay for Doom to look and feel tough as nails, this absolutely hits the mark. The dragon feels like a fighter jet that's alive and fierce, has a powerful arsenal, and even has its own glory kills that for me were an absolute pleasure to execute. Now, I'd love to tell you I was blown away by the Dragon and Atlas portions of the game, but the truth is I just don't have enough data on it. Of the 5 hours, maybe an hour was on the Dragon and about 30 minutes with the Atlan, give or take. So to tell you I loved it would be a little disingenuous. I think it has potential to be awesome. If there's boss fights specifically for those segments, that would be a good capstone, but that all remains to be seen. Visually, it was outstanding. Doom has always had a chokehold on me with its art direction. Everything is just so deep and well thought out, and I think in Doom the Dark Ages case, that's met equally with their sound design. The best way I could put it is crunchy and heavy. Now, something I forgot to touch on was enemy diversity, and I was surprised at how many new enemies I actually saw. There were a few new stronger versions of the imps who could turn invisible. There were enemies that ride mounts, and then there was a huge enemy with arachnid-like legs and armor whose design was super cool and really fitting of a Doom title. Now, I did a debrief with some of the other individuals who were invited to play, and it was pretty unanimous that Doom the Dark Ages looked and felt really good. The world was vivid and well designed, there were fun POIs to investigate, and enemy design seemed well executed. There was some talk about the level of polish and that it was somewhat lacking, but we were playing an older build of the game. It was sections that were laid out specifically for us to play while they finished polishing, so it's not something that I want to knock them for during a very early look into the game while they're still in the final stages of development. I think it looked clean personally. I was not at one moment walking around thinking, hey, they could have designed this level better, that demon could have looked cooler. So if I end up with a review code of the game, I will be a bit more critical on things of that nature. As for now, I'm going to remain remain optimistic that Doom will deliver yet another title that the fans of the genre will absolutely love and perhaps bring new people in. And if this ends up being their first Doom title, the only thing that comes to mind is that they will be spoiled by the storytelling, because going back and playing Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal has much less than what Doom the Dark Ages is offering, at least when it comes to that storytelling portion. The last thing I'm going to leave you with before we wrap this up is that I did vlog this entire trip, and to be honest, I really just wanted to document what this trip kind of looked like, because I have been blessed enough to be able to go on these every once in a while, and they are just so much fun. The teams put on the best show. I've gotten to work with Bethesda a couple times. They are so awesome. It's honestly just a great opportunity to be able to make this kind of content for you guys. And I even got some special words from Marty Stratton, one of the executive producers for Doom the Dark Ages and all the other Dooms at that. Super down-to-earth guy, very humble, very easy to talk to. It was like just talking to another gamer. So if you guys are curious about checking out that video, that will be in there. But that is going to wrap up my notes on the early preview. If you have any specific questions on things I might not have touched on, the embargo is up, so I can answer anything that might come to mind. Please be sure to subscribe. It helps out the channel a ton. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.